Hi everyone, welcome back. Sorry it's been a while. I think it's been about 3 or 4 weeks since I last posted a video. I've been out of action for a while. I've had a trapped nerve in my shoulder, so yeah, put me out of action for a bit. But I'm back now. I'm doing another drawing for you. Somebody actually asked me if at the start of the videos I could mention the materials I'm using so that they can follow along right from the start. So it's basically just an HB pencil, nothing special. Later on I'll be using a 2B pencil and another HB pencil, but it's a mechanical pencil with a 0.5mm lead, which is very fine, very nice for doing fine detail. Also, as you can see, I'm using a set square and a kneadable eraser, and the paper that I'm working on is Bockingford 140lb cold pressed watercolour paper. So it's got some texture to it, but don't let that put you off. Can actually use that to our advantage when we come to draw the trees and the stonework on the building. It gives a lovely effect for foliage and stonework with very little effort involved. In fact, this drawing is quite a good one for beginners because there's no real complicated aerial perspective. It's more of a panoramic view than anything. The place is actually Wiveton Hall in Norfolk, and these are the old, well, I presume they're the old farm buildings that are in the estate of the Wiveton Hall, and they're really nice and picturesque old Norfolk flint cottages with red pan-tiled roofs nestled in the trees in the grounds of the estate. It's a lovely scene. It's quite simple to draw actually, although I'm making plenty of mistakes, but I'm just sort of drawing this in freehand. I've got a photo at the side of me which I'm sort of referring to, and I'm just sort of drawing a basic line drawing with the HB pencil just to get everything established, just to get the proportions right, get the shapes in, get the composition formed and everything. So it's quite a simple one really, particularly if you use the paper, the watercolour paper, because that really will help and save you a lot of time drawing foliage and stonework and all that sort of detail. You know, a few light grazes over with a pencil, and that's when the magic happens. You know, you just sort of graze the paper with the graphite and the grain shows through and it looks really nice. And you'll see that a little bit later on. Just drawing the chimneys in with the HB pencil. They sort of stand out really nice against the background trees. Well, they will do when I draw the background trees in. It was one of the things that actually drew me to the picture actually, the way the chimneys were sort of sticking up. You know, the nice backdrop of the trees there. And also as well, I don't know if you can notice any difference, but I've actually got a new laptop. So the sound, hopefully the sound should be a lot better. My old laptop was giving notice, it was sort of overheating and getting really slow. So I bought this new laptop, and I think the sound card in it is a lot better than the old one. So hopefully, for those of you that have had a few problems with hearing me and the volume of some of the videos, hopefully that problem should be solved now. So yeah, I mean, just let me know if there's an improvement in the sound. It's certainly rendering the videos a lot quicker as well, which is a good thing. So just drawing the sort of faint outline of the top edge of the background trees there. Just a little bit of shading here and there, just where the trees are actually darker. Now I'm just sort of getting the windows more established, getting the framework in place. Sounds like I'm building it, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm just sort of drawing the framework in, the doors and etc. Still doing it all with an HB pencil. I'm using the set square just to get the roofs level, and making sure that the bottom windowsill part of all the windows are all level. I see a lot of drawings of buildings where obviously, you know, when they've been built, the windows are pretty much all the same size. I've seen a lot of drawings and paintings where people don't seem to take much notice of that, and the windows end up a little bit, you know, different sized, and it can look a little bit odd. So that's one of the reasons why I like to use set squares and things like that. I can get things nice and square, nice and straight and level. I think I've mentioned before about it's a bit controversial using set squares, but I don't mind using them. I encourage you to use them as well. You know, particularly if you're a beginner. You know, don't feel bad about using any aids to sort of help you draw. You know, anything that sort of helps you improve is a good thing, isn't it? So I'm using the 0.5mm mechanical pencil there. It's really good for getting in the corners of the windows where, you know, a larger 2mm lead is not quite so fine, and sort of bounces across the grain of the paper a little bit, and it's hard to get in all the sharp corners and everything, whereas this really fine lead gets in there really nicely. I'm using it again now for the roof tiles. I'm just drawing lines that are following the angle of the roof, keeping them fairly close together, not pressing down too hard. I'm not bothered if they're a little bit rough or anything, because these old cottages, you know, the tiles on them are a little bit wonky anyway, so you know, you don't have to be sort of too precise with it at this stage. So now once that's done, I'm using the set square now to draw the horizontals in. And I'm not actually drawing a straight line, I'm actually drawing a little wavy line to suggest the curvature on the pan tiles. But I'm just using the set square just to keep them parallel. Now I'm using the HB pencil just to put the shade under the eaves. A little bit along the ridge tiles at the top there. Same treatment for the distant roofs, but pressing a lot lighter and not really being too fussy about it, because I don't want too much detail showing there. Oh yeah, I'm just using, I didn't mention this at the start actually, I'm just using a Tombow Mono eraser. I think it's a 2.3mm tip in the end there, just to erase out some of the window frames. Same treatment for that roof there. I forgot to draw that in actually, that one that's hiding behind the tree there. And now this is where the fun starts. HB pencil on its side, so using the sort of flat part of the pencil, and just grazing it over the surface of the paper, and it gives that lovely textured look which looks really nice for stonework. I'm just going in now with the point of the pencil, just adding a little bit more detail here and there, just to give it a little bit more character. Just a little more, you know, just a little bit more shaded here and there. A few variations, you know, in the brickwork, or in the stonework, should I say. Same again on that building there. Just the HB pencil again on the side. Another 0.5 mechanical pencil for the windows, and a few more details on the edge. I mean, if you are drawing along at home, practicing this one, and you're finding the chimneys and those roofs in the background a little bit complicated, you can always leave them out and just draw that foreground cottage that's face on, you know, because there's no perspective there or anything too complicated about it. So if you leave the background roofs out and just draw the trees in its place, I think you'll still get a nice picture from it. I'm using the 2B pencil now, carefully going around the chimneys and the roof lines and everything. And then when I've done that, I hold it flat on its side, using the side of the pencil, same way as I've done the stonework on the building, just pressing a little bit harder and sort of scribbling it on a little bit more, so it goes on a little bit more denser. Gives a nice foliage effect, a little bit sort of sharp looking, so just soften it off a little bit with a blending stump. Sort of help it sit back in the distance a little bit more, and just using the kneadable eraser just to pull out a few sort of branch shapes where the light is probably just catching them and things like that. I'm going back in with the 2B pencil, just adding a few little darks in here and there where the tree trunks would be, or a little bit more shade. Softening it off with a soft brush there just to blend it back in a little bit. And I continued along all the way across the background there with the trees, doing exactly the same thing. Apart from the lighter trees there, I just used an HB pencil instead of the 2B pencil. I'm using the mechanical pencil again to draw in some of the brickwork around the window frames. These old flint work Norfolk cottages, they have sort of red brick window surrounds, you know, around the window frames. Very typical of Norfolk, very characteristic of the area. You see a lot of houses are sort of built that way in that area. And just softening them back just a little bit. You don't have to do that, but I just thought they probably stood out just a little bit, so I just thought I'd just quickly blend them in just a touch. The foreground trees, doing those with the HB pencil, again just grazing the paper, letting the grain show through, holding the pencil on the side, and then just sort of blending it in just a little bit with a blending stump. I'm using the 2B pencil there just to add some of the darks in, sort of try and get a bit of contrast there between the two trees. Blending stump. Just tapping the blending stump over it so that some of the graphite sort of comes off and leaves a few marks in the lighter areas. It can look like little clusters of leaves and things like that. That's the 2B pencil for the foreground bushes and shrubs. Exactly the same thing again, just, you know, pencil on the side, grazing it on, and then just blending it in. Anything that looks a little bit too dark, just sort of dab it with the eraser. Very, very simple. Takes away hours of work using watercolour paper. If you use you know, smooth cartridge paper or drawing paper, you can't have to draw all those marks in by hand, and it can take hours. You know, but letting the paper do the work for you can save you a lot of time. Just using the graphite that's left on the end of the blending stump there, just to put a few directional lines in the grass there, just to suggest sort of a little bit of rough grass and the shading in the grass. You know, I'm in two minds whether to paint this or just leave it as a drawing. I think I'm going to paint it and probably make a video of me painting it, so you can see what it looks like. But this video is just actually going to be the drawing. So now I'm working on the right hand tree there. I probably should have moved that over a little bit more to the right, so there was less of it showing actually. So if you're doing this one at home, you can probably try that, you know, move the whole thing along a little bit so you don't get so much of the mass of the tree there. I'm using a 2B pencil on the side, and my eyes are flicking from the drawing to the reference photo, looking where the lights and darks are in the tree. I've got to get the light right on this or it'll make the whole picture look a little bit strange. So the light's sort of coming in from the right hand side, So we've got some nice darks on the bottom left there, just under that branch near where the trunk could be, where the sun won't catch it. A few darker areas in the middle. Although this doesn't look, you know, sort of hyper realistic or anything, I think it looks quite nice. It's sort of bordering on impressionism, really. You know, it's very sketchy, but you know, I kind of like the effect of it. Actually, I kind of like the rough texture of the paper and the effect it gives. You know, but if you don't like that sort of thing, I mean, obviously just you know, stick to the usual paper that you've got, cartridge paper or drawing paper. Now this embankment here, this sort of grassy, shrubby sort of embankment that the tree's growing up on, I'm just using a 2B pencil there, just put a few darks in, and kneadable eraser, sort of squeeze together to make a sharp edge to put a few blades of grass in. I did actually promise you that I'd make a video about drawing grass. Quite a few of you have asked several times actually, and I am going to do it, but what I'm going to do is make a separate video just on grass, because it's quite a big subject, so I shall be making that for you soon. Yeah, so I haven't forgotten. So I'm just sort of blending in just here and there, just sort of the final touches really now. I didn't really want to go too detailed in that foreground. I want the eye to sort of skip over that and look at the cottages, which are the main sort of focal point. But it's a little bit more refining, a little bit more blending and highlighting. Just where I think it needs it really. Just adding a few shadows there. This will give a nice contrast between the foreground grass and that sort of large area of grass just there. Using the kneadable eraser, again sort of squeezed to a nice sort of fine edge, and just sort of flicking it up across the graphite there, just to sort of suggest a little bit of grass, a few blades of grass and things like that. Yeah, a few final touches, and that's it. That's the finished drawing. Well, I hope that was useful to you. Thanks very much for viewing, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.